Hey everyone, Max Bowen from Citywide Blackout here. Well, it's that time of the year again. In just a few months, the annual Rhode Island Author Expo returns. This event brings together more than 100 authors from all genres. Now, this year will be a lot different, because like so many other events, they decided to cancel the physical one in the interest of public safety. But that doesn't mean the show doesn't happen. In fact, this year it's going all virtual, with panels, author coffee clutches, and a whole lot more. And once more, I'll be the MC of this wonderful event. Now, the whole thing happens on December 5th, and you should definitely check out riauthorexpo.com for more information and a complete list of events. I'll see you there. Hey everyone, welcome back to Citywide Blackout, your home for music, movies, and more. I'm your host, Max Bowen. For the past 25 years, writer Frank Thoms has talked about Marxism, Russian history, and Soviet Communism as a teacher, but he's also been to Russia on 7 different occasions since 1985. In his new book, Behind the Red Veil, An American Inside Gorbachev's Russia, he introduces people to Russia, its people, and how he changed from the experience. My next guest, he is the author of the book Behind the Red Veil, An American Inside Gorbachev's Russia. It's a very, very in-depth account of his many trips to Russia and exploring the people, the culture, and the politics. Writer Frank Thoms joins me. Frank, welcome to the show. I am very excited to be having this conversation.
And I am excited to be with you, Max. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Oh.
It's really, I love talking about the book and what happened in the book and all about it. So let's get to it.
All right, then. So in your bio, it said that you had spent 25 years as a teacher pursuing an understanding of things like Marxism, Russian history, and Soviet communism. What I'm curious about is, what did you learn in your trips over there that you hadn't learned just in your own studies?
Well, I taught the Marxist and Russian history and Soviet communism in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Different ways at different times, but I always involved, like the 80s was the nuclear disarmament was the focus issue. In the 60s, it was the Cold War, and the 70s was somewhat there too. But when I went there, I had just had this hankering since I was very young about the Russians, and I got a chance to go in October '85 for 2 weeks on leave of absence from my 8th grade teaching position to go to a tour on Moscow, Leningrad, and Kiev. And I wanted to I joined the tour, but I was hoping to see what they didn't want me to see, because I was really eager to find out who the Russians really were. And I guess one of the biggest differences is when you get over there and you step behind the Iron Curtain, which was easy, but then you get in front of the Red Veil, which I talk about, which you have to penetrate the Soviet deception about what the country is and what it's supposed to be to foreigners and to visitors. I just ended up meeting a real Russian 20 minutes off the plane before I met my tourist guide group. So I already started penetrating, and I was in her apartment 2 days later for lunch with her family. And then on the day in between, I met 2 black marketers who got me to find 2 students I was looking for from their friends that had given them teddy bears and wanted me to pass them on. And these guys met those women that night, and there we were. So 2 days in, I said, what's different is these people are like people. They're like us. They have food, they have lunches, and and I had this real sense of humanity early on, which when you study about communism and Marxism and all those things, you're kind of distant, and it's kind of ideologically oriented. So it was fascinating to feel the humanity early on.
For some people, their only experience with Russians is what they see in like movies, TV, and through the media. What would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that are made in portraying them? And sort of as a follow-up question, what's the most harmful of these errors?
Yeah, I think one of the harms is that somehow the Soviets, in what they do, spying and all those things in the world, is horrible. But it's the same thing that we do with them. I mean, we have an ideology and a way of life that we're trying to promote, the democracy idea, and theirs was much more built from czarist traditions of a one-man leader and dictates and following the system. And I think the harmful impression you really get is that these people are kind of coded in evil, and they're really not. I mean, they're human beings trying to get along on the planet their way, which isn't a way that I would advocate, but it was a way that they had developed and pushed, and I think our movies portray them as pretty much bad guys. And I think they're guys who are not good, but I'm not equating us with them. I'm not saying that, but I think the impression sometimes is that they're not human beings like we are. I think that's embedded in a lot of the movies.
Oh yeah, I mean,
best I can do with that one.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, because anytime I've seen them in TV shows or movies, you're right. They're always portrayed as the evil Russians, and they're always evil. Doesn't matter what time period. It can be back in Indiana Jones, movie time, or current movies, but they're always these horribly evil monsters are out to conquer the world.
Yep, that's well said. Thank you.
Now, you've been over there on, from what I'm reading, 7 occasions, and these are kind of over the years. What kept you going back there again and again?
Well, the 7 occasions were in Gorbachev's Russia, and there's one more after in the new Russia. And I had hoped to go last spring, but because of the virus, it didn't happen. I had it all set up, but it didn't work. What it was here, I arrived on the first tour trip that I just had to go to, and the school somehow never did this. They gave me 2 weeks leave to go, and I got there, and I said, I'm going to find out who these people are. And once I had gotten done the 2 weeks, I already decided I'm going back as a teacher of Soviet kids, and I don't know who's going to stop me, but I'm going to do that. So I got a leave of absence from school the next year, a half year, and in the summer I went to Russian language school at Norwich University, and I got a letter from AFS International, who handled the U.S.-Soviet exchange program, inviting me to go in the fall of 1986. And my application was late. I had gone to Washington to try to get help on my own, and the application was late, but it fell over the transom at the right time because somebody backed out, so they called me. So I got to go. And so I did, and I taught in a Soviet school. Had a remarkable experience, as you can tell from the book, in School 1, number 85. Just incredible. I came home. People were hungering that I would come back. I was hungering to go back. I said, now I've got this calling. I'm going to go again. I'm not going to stop with just once. And I went back in the spring and almost got rejected because I went on my own without papers, without support, without any government support from either the Americans or the Soviets. I got no's all the way around, but I still went. And I got in, and I got to be in the school again for 2 weeks and had a marvelous time. And I got another letter next summer, to go again as an AFS teacher to another school, which turned to be a throwback before Brezhnev, before Gorbachev. But it was still an amazing experience. I had 2 schools already. In between, I had found a school in Moscow on my own, and a few years later, I ended up in a school in Kazakhstan on my own. So I had 4 schools in 3 cities in 6 years that I was there. And then one more trip after with a group of teachers in Yekaterinburg, Siberia, helping these teachers get ready to come to America. So a lot of experiences, couldn't stop, and it was just an incredible time.
What is life like over there? So for you weren't just there as a tourist, you were there to work. So what's like a day in Russia like?
Well, for me, I stayed in hotels. That's what I had to do. And they were not fancy hotels. They were small hotels. If you when you go on a tour, you stay in an international hotel, no Soviets allowed. You stay with this group on the bus, no Soviets except for the guide. You go to Berioska shops to buy things only for foreigners and rich Soviets. So you basically are sheltered behind this red veil all the way through. But when you go into a school to work, you stay in a hotel and you come and go every day. And I was supposed to work for 3 lessons a day and then leave and tour the city and have a good time. That's what the city official told me to do. I ended up not observing the first week like I was supposed to, teaching from the first day, teaching 5 classes a day, teaching all week, not leaving the school 7 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and then after school with kids and teachers. But life for my Soviet friends, basically all the flats were of the same. Same furniture, same couches, same refrigerators, same tables, same kitchen setup. It was like every single apartment was the same for the people. Very sparse, not easy to get food. But if they invited you for dinner, they would take 3 or 4 days to bring food together, so we would have a feast with cognac and vodka and toast and great peas salad and pilmeni and great food. But they would have to prepare for 3 or 4 days if I were to come for dinner. Otherwise, they'd be embarrassed. But once in a while, I got to know people better, and I ended up going on a regular time. And they're very, very blank, very sparse places. And the Russians had thought before becoming a Gorbachev that they were doing like the rest of the world. But when they found out what the West was like, they really started to hunger for something better.
So we're probably considered pretty rich in comparison.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I didn't have much income. I was living on practically nothing, but I was, compared to them, oh my goodness. Yep. I had a car. Most of them didn't. I could live in a house and stuff, and so it was interesting.
Mm-hmm. What about things to do outside of like hanging with that people? I'm kind of curious as to what like the nightlife is like.
Well, nightlife in the hotel was like nightlife in a hotel, and I sometimes would. I didn't usually. I had life in the school and with the school people. Then I left. They went home, and I went to the hotel. We split. That's what happened. Although once in a while I would go to homes and stuff. That happened too. But a student invited me to a home she should never have done. She got in big trouble, but she invited me anyway because she wanted me to go there. And in the chapter in the book called She, it's a chapter with no name about her, and it's an incredible story. But hanging out in the hotel, I tried to mingle a little bit. But my Russian language is kind of weak, and but it didn't. The nightlife seemed kind of quiet. It didn't, but I didn't go around and look for bars and stuff like that to see what was going on, so I can't really tell you much about that. Mm-hmm. But in the hotel, it was pretty quiet, not fancy. So it wasn't as hopping as Boston, which I know well, is, or Lowell, even where I used to live, was more hopping sometimes than Leningrad.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because
that's my impression. I could be wrong, but that was my impression.
No, okay, because I mean, like my only impression with these series is what I might see from like tourist magazines. So, and they always portray it as like, oh, the vibrant nightlife of Russia, but it sounds like the reality.
Well, it might be vibrant now. It might be vibrant now after with Putin when in a new Russia with more money infused into the cities and culture. Might be vibrant for some people, but I imagine that's why I wanted to go last spring. I imagine for the average person, I don't think life would be that much different. It certainly wasn't in the new Russia 3 years later. It was just Soviet as Soviet could be, even though the Soviet Union had been dead for 3 years. The same lying, the same scarcity, the same messy streets, the same drunks, the same bland buildings, more signs now of modern stuff. But basically, most cars were still the Russian Lada, the Volkswagen type car. But there were some foreign cars. I expected more by 3 years, but they really weren't that much more. So in a lot of ways, I would bet now, and that's why I wanted to find out, that a lot of the Russians are living not much different. Some of my Russian friends here say, oh my God, Russia is great, Frank, you should see it. Some of my friends have gone over and they say, wow, it's amazing. But they're seeing in front of the red veil. That's what I think. I just feel, from what I can tell, that it ain't much different.
Okay.
But who knows? I mean, things don't change much in the States either when you think about it. So.
Very true. So for the folks at home, maybe a little confused, what exactly is the red veil?
Well, that's my concept. I was having trouble writing the book. I started it 30 years ago, and I put it away when Gorbachev resigned, and plus the writing was terrible. And I revised it 5 years ago, and I've been busting my chops. I'd already published 4 books, 3 on teaching and stuff. And I said, I'm going to make this book work. So I worked my butt off, ended up getting a publisher and editor and all that stuff. But the red veil concept came, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I said, oh, that makes sense. Because you get over the Iron Curtain real easy. You fly over it. You get through it. You go through customs and you get through. But then you're there, and there's so much put in front of you as a foreigner. to block you from seeing what was behind, what was around the corner. And because I had met that first woman and got to her apartment on my own in a metro, how I did it, I don't know. And because I met these two guys on the street and drove around the back streets of Leningrad, I'd already seen what tourists weren't supposed to see. And I began to wonder, well, if I stayed on that bus, if I stayed with Nina, who was a wonderful person, and ate in all the international hotels, went to the Berioska shops, went to the restaurants all ready for us and serving us the best food, and only seeing the best historic sites, I wouldn't have seen Russia, the Soviet Union. I would have seen the front, and I call that the Red Veil. It's just an idea I came up with, and it worked so well that the writing started to come together, and it went with the second metaphor of the matryoshka, the Russian nesting dolls. You open up and open up and open up, and I said, well, I'm going to take that metaphor and see how far inside I can get about the Russians. And I ended up finding out quite a bit that way. And I also found out in the end a lot about myself that I didn't know. My own Matryoshka doll, me. And so I ended up the book somewhat different as a person than I did when I began. But I didn't know that sort of until I started really writing about it. So the Red Veil was that. And the third metaphor, which I didn't use because you might be interested in this. I woke up one day after the book was published. I said, oh, my God, I never mentioned my Russian hat, my Black Rabbit, common people's Russian hat, ever in the book. And I went back and wrote an essay about it and gave it to my publicist a couple of days ago. A writer's lament. I forgot about it. I forgot I lost it. And I got another hat that was black, but it wasn't black. It was brown. I discovered 3 years later. It was not rabbit, but fox. So the hat metaphor could have been another piece of the book, but I just didn't use it. But it's there. So anyway, because that's how I put a Russian hat on. I'm a Russian. It makes me look like them and want to be like them, be one with them. So I didn't do that. But still, I think the Matryoshka and the Red Veil really worked well, I think, in the book.
How would you say you've changed from the trips and from writing the book? How is Frank prior to all of this different from the Frank that I'm talking to you right now?
Well, I'm not living in the U.S. anymore. I'm in Mexico. That's one of the things that may have come out of this. I think the biggest thing is I went over there. I'm going to be the American, and I'm going to find out. And I came to the school, and I was the United States of America to the kids. I was, Mr. Frank, and kids really looked at me. They're fascinated by what I was doing. I taught very differently, blah, blah, blah. But it turns out that in the end, I ended up teaching in Kazakhstan in 1991, and the kids and I talked about afterlife and reincarnation, and about Thich Nhat Hanh, and about just for today and how to be as a person. We got into very much, the Soviet curriculum was the same in Kazakhstan, the same books, the same uniforms, the same pedagogy the teachers used, but because I think I just saw myself as, I have to really just be me. I don't have to put on any airs. I don't have to, wasn't putting on airs at first, but I was, running around really fast. I went every day. I was at school early and stayed late and tried to ask everything and find out everything I could. But in the end, I ended up spending more time inside with the kids and me together. And it was, I think I came out a more thoughtful, maybe, more a teacher more willing to look beyond the obvious with kids. But I was always very provocative as a teacher, but there was another dimension happened. That's the best I can say it, I think. Great question, though.
Well, thank you. Now, as you mentioned earlier, your previous books have been more focused on teaching and education. What would you say was your biggest challenge in writing this book?
The biggest challenge it was like, we are in a time where people don't know the Russians. Yes, I'm taking them on a trip They can take a trip with my book without having to travel and get the coronavirus. But they also get to go back in time and look at these people. And they'll see them as people they know, that they knew at that time. They ate lunch, they had arguments, they had to deal with scarcity, they had to deal with issues, they had to deal with the government, they had to deal with their families, they had to deal with health, and all these things show throughout the book. These are people, and they allowed me to be a person with them. I never felt as though when I was in a home that I was something that they were trying to impress. Instead they were trying to connect. As I write in the book, I was not going to show America to them, but to be an American with them, and to be a person, an American, yes, but a person with them. And so I think that, compared to the previous books, if that's how the question, if I remember it correctly, I was writing about teaching in my life as a teacher, either in the third person or about what to do as a teacher. But here I'm writing about, I'm in a whole nother world. But I had no trouble making the transition because I had tried 30 years ago to start doing it, but put it away. And it wasn't very good writing either. My wife would tell you it was pretty bad. It just didn't, it had some great ideas, great titles, I forget, I just had one in my head, I just lost it. Some different titles about being with the Russians and so that kind of thing, but it just didn't work at that time.
Given the amount of work that went into this and the amount of time you spent on it, was it hard to pull the trigger and get this thing sent off, or was it almost a relief because of all that time?
In a way, it was hard to let go. In another way, I couldn't wait to let it go because I had read each sentence and each paragraph over and over, gotten feedback from my wife, feedback from some friends, and I decided that this book is now a marvelous editor, my friend Annie Tucker from San Francisco, who helped me, inserted things that I had to say about my feelings, inserted things about takeaways for the reader. She took out 9 chapters in one paragraph. These are not needed, and she was right. So the book became very readable. The writing was good, but the readability was improved a lot. And once it was done and ready and copy edited, and then I got a great cover. I love the cover of the book. I said, it's ready to go. So goodbye. And it went. And it's out there now, and it's starting to stir up interest. I'm hearing some good things, and so we'll see.
Have you had the chance to get any feedback from people living in Russia, any of your friends that you met over there?
Yeah, one of my very dearest Russian student friends is now living in California. And we met in Mill Valley in 2018, and we reminisced about our time at the school, which at 185 in my first school. Katya, and I also went to visit them when I was in the town. Every time I was in Leningrad, I always went back to the school. Katya Schraber became one of my closest contacts, and she got over here and she's got in touch. She found me on Facebook, was thrilled, so we met. And God, she just told the story of the green jacket that I wore every day and what it meant to her. It makes me cry to talk about it. I'm not going to share much because I can't, but it's in the book. Verbatim, what she told me in Mill Valley. I recorded it on my tape recorder, and I didn't change a word. I just capitalized green jacket. Mm-hmm. That's all I did when she talked about it. I can't tell you. It was just the connections, the people. I'm going to be talking to her 90-person book club in November in California. Yeah, that green jacket story was the incredible feedback.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because it said that I thought I was the United States of America. I thought I was, blah blah. But she said, Mr. Frank Thoms in her diary. She found her diary a few years ago. She said Frank Thoms came into our school, and he looks like a movie star. I said, well, okay. And then he wore this green jacket, and I ended up giving her the green jacket.
Oh, cool.
Because she loved it before I left the last time. And her mother stored it for her when she became an immigrant to the States. She went back to visit her mother, but the green jacket had been eaten by moths.
Ooh.
So the whole story's in the book, and it's a wonderful story. And her words telling it, I almost shouldn't have said anything about it because her words are just perfect English. It's just beautifully said and really touching. And so we were going to be together in St. Petersburg last spring, with other friends and teachers, but it didn't work because of the virus.
Being in Russia, was there any real culture shock for you?
You know, if I had stayed on the bus, on the tour, I would have come home and I would have had a story to tell that was nothing like the story I told, because I didn't see beyond what was being told that I should see. So I might have been shocked by the placidness of it, because I ended up talking to a girl in Kiev after dinner. I walked out on the street by myself, and this girl approached me with English and told me that she was a heroin addict. I said, what, they have a drug problem in Russia? Because I didn't know that. But here's this kid, young woman, who has a heroin problem. And then I went with 3 boys into Moscow to their flat on the outskirts of Moscow on my own. We drank vodka that I bought at the Berioska shop. And they told me all kinds of things about life and about how their dislike and like of Gorbachev and all that stuff. So shocked? Actually, in the end, not, because I realized that they're human beings struggling with life like we are. I think I never thought of it that way, but I don't think I was really shocked, because I had a pretty good idea of what communism was supposed to be, what Marxism was. And I preached the ideas of Marx and communism to my 8th graders. We had dressed up as pioneers and did young pioneers, and did Soviet school the Soviet way. We did pretty well, actually, because when I saw it, it was about the way we did it in 1963. So, shocked? Probably not. Probably not. Good question again. You're good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, years of experience, been doing this for a long time. Why do you want people to read your book? What do you think they're going to get out of it?
Yeah, I asked that. Why should you read a book about this? At the end of the book, I asked that question. I think it's a chance, personally, I think it's a chance, what I didn't think of at the time, of, getting away from the isolation and the sort of encaged life that we live here, because you can't travel. Most of us aren't willing to get on an airplane and go to a foreign country. And we can't even do that now in the U.S. So it's a chance to go and see somebody else, be with somebody else. Not a long book, but enough stories to get a taste of what life was like in that time and who those people are. But the other reason is I think it gives us a chance to get a perspective on the world, seeing another culture and understanding that being in another culture, we understand our own culture better, I think. It happened to me for sure. It happened to me when I went to England in 1970. I came back from England and I was shocked at America after being in England for 14 months, teaching in a primary school and living in a village. I really had a hard time readjusting to what America's pace was and what America was, the crassness and the pushiness. And I was in England where the pub was kind of different and all that. So in my book, you get a chance to see and feel and sense and live in temporarily another culture. And I think I have a better argument in the book, but I can't remember it right now. I apologize.
That's okay. It's okay. One thing I was really curious about, we talked a lot about some of the misconceptions that Americans have of people living in Russia. In talking to your students, did you find that they had a take on Americans that was incorrect?
That is probably, and that comes out really loud in the book. Absolutely. They hear one story from Pravda, the newspaper, Vremya, daily night television, the Fox News. Russia had its own Fox News system, but it was national, state-run, and they had the news at night was the truth for people to listen to. They had political information classes in school. They had textbooks that had stories about how bad life was in America, poverty, homelessness. So they have this whole take on the capitalist system where the rich are rich and the poor are homeless and horrible. And they're all in their textbooks. They have it. And so when I come in there, and sometimes when I went to the second school in particular, The kids were all totally indoctrinated in the anti-American thing. And I told my Russian friend, she, in the book, I tell her, these kids are all saying the same stuff. What's going on? And she said, there's a difference between what we need to say and what we want to say. Which I thought was profound from a 16-year-old. And so these kids, so I was the sort of a dent in that. I was a dent. I could puncture it a little bit, I think. So I think that the misconceptions were really strong, and I think I might have made some dents in some kids' lives. I know I did in some, for sure. But it's really hard. But there's also, at the same time, during Gorbachev, more information was coming in from the West. They were having space bridges between kids in America and Russia. There were more newspapers, papers and stuff were coming in. So the propaganda posters and Vremya and Pravda and all that stuff it started to have to be they were being competed against by stuff sneaking in from Russia, not just like blue jeans, for example, things like that, where things were starting to change. So. And I was part of that. I mean, it's an amazing time to have been there.
Yeah.
Just amazing. And I think the stories tell that.
Did you ever consider just staying in Russia, just becoming a resident there?
No, I didn't. There was a thought about it, but I said, I can't live in the culture. I could learn the language. I started to learn it. But no, it was, I really loved what I was doing in America, and I wanted to be more of an ambassador than an emigrate to Russia. I wanted to be on the bridge between the two of us and sort of make connections and all that kind of thing. I really like that role. And if I went to Russia, it would be like going on parts of the web that I don't want to go on. It would be like going to another place and living inside this cocoon, which I think I would have done if I had stayed. So I didn't really consider it. That's a good question. Another one.
Just keep them coming. Keep them coming. Do you see America differently because of your experiences?
See America differently. I think, here, I'll give you an example. In the Soviet Union and in Russia still, when kids are learning, if a kid doesn't know something, another kid will tell them and help them. They'll do the homework for them. They will cheat for them on tests. They will prompt them in class to help them answer the teacher's questions. In other words, there's a very collectiveness about cheating and prompting. They do it together to help each other. Where in the States, if a kid cheats, he cheats for himself. And the culture in the States is more like you take the test. Like these Varsity Blues parents that tried to get their kids, apparently 24 of them or 42 of them, something like that, into USC, spending money and privilege and trying to get their kids to succeed. That emphasis isn't there. It's not about me being better than you as a student. Even if I am a better student, if you need help, I'm going to help you. And that comes through over and over in the book. Even teachers recognize the cheating, but they look through the fingers. Matryskavoy Polska. Russian for look through the fingers. They see but do not see. They notice but do not see, do not say anything. The kids know this. It's a big effrontery. It's a big effrontery. They know, the teachers know. But everybody's in the system because the system itself in Russia is so oppressive from Moscow. Way too much stuff to learn, way too much stuff to memorize. No, they have libraries, but nobody goes to a library because there's nothing in the library to go to except Pravda, Investia, the other newspaper, and Soviet texts. There's no research thing you can do there. So in America, you can go and find out for yourself. You can go to the library in school and do research and come back to the teacher and say, I found out this, which was different than what you said. And it's okay. But in a Soviet classroom, if a teacher is going to answer a question of a controversy, the teacher already knows what the student's going to say, which is another piece in the book, as you'll see. Okay. So differently, I saw America better, more clearly.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate this. And folks, definitely get yourself a copy of Behind the Red Veil: An American Inside Gorbachev's Russia, available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get your book of choice. And Frank, do you think there might be another book down the road for you?
Well, I have the 4 books I've done on education. I'm thinking of doing another one for what I'm calling Censoring Amid Chaos, Wisdom for Teachers, where I do a series of quotations and commentaries. I'm trying to make it so that teachers can have a place to find solace in their work because it's so strenuous and so difficult. So I've been thinking about that for years, and I'm going to go back to that eventually. Whether I'll do anything more on the Russian front, I don't know. If I go back again, I might end up writing articles about it and something. But I don't think there's another book in the hopper, because this one is sort of 30 years ago and then revised. It's sort of that experience is a piece of my life that I'll never have again. So. But anyway, I hope people read it. I think they'll find it interesting. I hope they think to do a review, which would help, of course, and tell their friends if they like it, because I've had some very good responses from people I know and don't know, and it would be interesting to have that happen. So, and I really appreciate you taking time to interview me and ask me amazingly wonderful questions, which I've listed here, which I'm going to use and think about more after. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and where do folks go to learn more about you?
They can go to Frank Thoms, FrankThoms.com, and it's a website that steers them towards me. It's one I built myself with help from with the template from Fauzi Burke Associates, and it tells a good story. And then if they go on, they can check my other books out. The one, Listening for Learning, the last education book I wrote, is my life as a teacher in the third person. It's the only way I could get it published, so I did it in the third person. It was kind of a treat to write, actually. It was kind of interesting. So, anyway.
All right. Well, Frank, thanks again, and I definitely look forward to checking out this book.
Okay, Max, and thank you for reaching out, and good luck to you and to your wonderful city, because I spent most of my life in New England, starting out in Williamstown, Mass., and going to Hanover, New Hampshire, and Worcester, Mass., and Lowell, Mass., and now Mexico.
Hey guys, what's going on? This is Brian Murphy from One Time Mountain, and you're listening to Citywide Blackout with Max Bowen.
Rock on.
Picture this. You finished your first book and nailed it. The plot, the characters, all the twists and turns. This one's a winner, and all you need is the right cover. If you've got my art skills, this is the part where panic usually sets in. Enter the cover villain, hero to writers everywhere. Founded by noted author Remy Flagg, Cover Villain focuses on composite image covers for science fiction and fantasy writers. Give them the details, and they'll craft a cover using popular trends that everyone will want to see. But wait, you say, I've got ideas of my own. No problem, as Cover Villain loves a good collaboration. As they say, our goal is to put a little villain in every cover we make. Want to know more? Then head to covervillain.com and follow them on Facebook and Instagram. All right, everyone, that brings this episode to a close. You can follow the show on Facebook under Citywide Blackout and Twitter and Instagram under Citywide Max. Listen to the show on Podbean, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, YouTube, and every Saturday at 10 p.m. on Boston Free Radio. As always, keep those ears open.